Hello there, and welcome to Just About Earth, where curiosity sits quietly beside you and the mysteries of our past stretch out without hurry. Tonight's journey begins under skies that have been watching over this planet far longer than we have been telling stories about it. They've been here before we had cities, before we had calendars, before the first history book was ever written. If you let yourself imagine it, you can almost feel that same sky looking down on people we've never heard of. People who may have shaped the world you and I live in right now without leaving their name behind. It's not the sort of mystery that hides in shadows. It's not even necessarily about secrets. It's about something quieter, almost polite, the kind of mystery that stands in plain sight and waits for you to notice. Scattered across the surface of our world are clues. Some are etched in stone. Some are carried in the patterns of old maps. Some hide inside myths that are told so often no one remembers who told them first. And tonight, we're going to let our thoughts follow those clues toward a simple but strangely powerful question. What if an entire civilization lived, thrived, and even shaped our world, and we've forgotten they existed? Before we start looking for those hints together, I'd like to take a moment and picture where you are right now. Maybe you're sitting somewhere quiet with a drink in your hand. Maybe you're unwinding after a long day, not quite ready to sleep yet. Maybe your eyes are half on the screen and half on something else in the room. I'd love to know what the sky looks like outside your window right now. If it's night where you are, maybe you can see a few stars. If it's day, imagine those stars still hanging behind the blue, waiting for their turn to be seen. Someone thousands of years ago might have looked at the exact same patch of sky and used it to decide when to plant their crops or when to set out on a journey. Those same stars might have been the guide for someone building a monument we still walk past today without fully understanding why it was built in the first place. If you enjoy letting your mind wander through questions like this, questions that move slowly and don't need to be answered in a hurry, I'd be grateful if you liked this video, or maybe subscribed. When you think about history, you might picture it as a neat line with events placed in order like beads on a string. There's a start, there's an end, and everything in between is connected in a clear, logical path. But that's just one way of seeing it. Another way is to imagine history as a layered picture. The top layer is the one we know, the names of empires, the inventions, the migrations, but beneath that there could be layers we've barely begun to notice. One of those hidden layers might be a civilization older than we think possible, one that developed skills and knowledge that made their way into our world quietly, passed from hand to hand until their origin was lost. You can see the edges of this possibility in certain ruins. There are places where archaeologists agree the main structure belongs to a known culture, but the base it sits on, the foundation stones, don't match. Sometimes the blocks at the bottom are far larger than anything the upper builders would have used. Sometimes they're fitted together so precisely without mortar that we can't slip a blade between them, while the newer work above looks rougher by comparison. Before written language, the only way to preserve knowledge was through telling it, and each retelling was a chance for details to change. Without records, a few generations could pass, and a major event could shift from remembered fact to half-remembered story. From there, it could become a legend, and finally a myth, until the real people and the real events were invisible under the layers of storytelling. Archaeology works with what survives, and survival is uneven. An object might be buried for thousands of years in perfect condition, while something from the same time vanishes completely because it was made from a less durable material. If a civilization built mainly from wood in a wet climate, their cities might have dissolved back into the earth. If they wrote on something that rotted or burned easily, their words would be gone. So, we're left with pieces. Sometimes those pieces don't fit the timeline we already believe. An object might seem too advanced for its age. A building technique might appear long before we think it should. When this happens, researchers face a choice. They can try to fit it into the known story. They can suggest the dating was wrong, or they can set it aside as something unexplained. If such a civilization existed, they might not have been massive empire builders. They could have been small groups spread across great distances linked by shared knowledge rather than political borders. Instead of focusing on conquering territory, they might have specialized in navigation, farming, astronomy, or tool-making, sharing their discoveries in ways that allowed others to claim them as their own. Their influence might have been subtle. Maybe they traded seeds that became the basis for crops we still rely on today. Maybe they showed others how to shape stone so it would last for centuries. We also have to consider how much of the planet we haven't explored in detail. Large areas of the ocean floor are unmapped. Dense forests can hide ruins from satellites. Deserts have swallowed entire cities beneath sand. Even in places we think we know, surprises still surface. Sometimes road construction uncovers ancient walls just below the ground. Sometimes drought reveals buildings on a lake bed, and once you start seeing the world this way, it's hard to stop noticing the patterns. A symbol carved into stone in one country looks almost identical to one found thousands of kilometers away. A specific kind of joint in woodworking appears in cultures separated by oceans. A story told to children in one language has nearly the same shape as one told in another, with only the names and details changed. All of these things could have happened independently. Of course, human beings often come up with similar solutions to similar problems, but sometimes the similarities are too precise to ignore. Think about how a story can survive in a family. Maybe your grandparents told you something they heard from theirs, and over time the details got fuzzy. A name might have been forgotten. The place might have been changed to somewhere more familiar. This is where the whisper hides. Not in the parts of the story that are too fantastical to believe, but in the pieces that feel strangely practical. The parts that don't need magic to work, but seem oddly advanced for the time. Details like knowing when the rainy season will start, or how to predict an eclipse, or how to build something that will last for centuries without collapsing. Before we go further, I'd like to ask you something small, something easy, and something that helps keep this sort of journey possible. If you're enjoying the slow drift through questions that don't demand immediate answers, if you like wandering through ideas that stretch beyond what's written in history books, it would mean a lot if you gave this video a like or maybe subscribed. It's a small gesture, but it helps more than it looks. It helps this quiet space find others who might want to think about the past without rushing to conclusions. The more people who join in, the richer these conversations can get. The more minds considering the same questions, the more perspectives there are. There's also something reassuring in knowing that there are others moving through the same moment with you, even if you're scattered across time zones. Right now, someone could be listening from a city apartment with traffic humming below. Someone else might be in a rural town where the night air is still enough to hear crickets outside the window. Someone could be halfway across the world listening with their morning coffee while you're winding down for the evening. We've talked about the idea of people who came before us, people whose lives shaped ours in ways we may not realize. Well, that same ripple effect happens in the present too. What you choose to share, who you talk to about it, what questions you pass along, all of that can change how others see the same subject. When we open ourselves up to the possibility that our world is built on the foundations of people we've forgotten, we also open ourselves up to appreciating the unseen contributions happening all around us. An influence doesn't need to be big to be lasting. A single tool design that works better than anything else can outlive the people who invented it by thousands of years. That's the way I think about these conversations. Each one is a kind of seed. Each person who,